the one and only Kenny Wallace, NASCAR legend, and of course an amazing dirt driver back there in Missouri. We heard that you're actually a brand new grandpa. I mean, if everybody, of course, follows you on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, we want to say thank you so very much.
Well, especially for taking time out of your day. We know your granddaughter's there, Kenny, a little Charlotte Marie.
That's it.
Yeah. Very cool. Congrats. And, once again, just thanks for your time and your input and your opinions. And when are we going to see you on the West Coast, man?
Man, I raced out there a lot. I've been out there a whole bunch. I started out, we ran 2 nights there at the Las Vegas Dirt Track, for NASCAR week. And I went over and, of course, I ran, where else did I run? Peoria, Arizona, at, forgot the damn name of that racetrack. But,
USA Raceway?
Canyon Speedway.
Canyon Speedway.
Yeah, I ran there. And then I also ran Bakersfield, the dirt track that is right next to the asphalt track. So
we love
I ran
Bakersfield.
about four races out there already. I ran, where else did I run last year? I ran Antioch. So I've been out there a lot.
We got to get you up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, we have, like we were talking here last week and stuff, Schrader's coming back up. Your good buddy is coming back up for our speed weeks. He did it here a couple years ago and, of course, just schooled some of these guys up here, so they've done some of the research, so that won't happen again. But he's actually coming up to my track, Sunset Speedway, there in Banks, Oregon. He's got a big promo for a sponsor up there. And
Federated,
is going to come up and have a good time with us up there. But, yeah, we'd love to see you up here. Come race Willamette, come race, the fastest little quarter-mile bull ring up here in Oregon, Sunset Speedway. But again, Kenny, man, by far you're one of our good friends. I love talking to you, especially when I have chassis issues and stuff. I love giving you a call. You're always one of those top people that will give me a straight answer if you can. But race fans, I mean, we want to thank you so much for Kenny for taking out your time, and congratulations again on being a grandpa.
Okay, thank you all. Good night.
Have a good night, Kenny. Thanks.
Thanks, buddy. Well, race fans, that was Kenny Wallace. Man.
Well, it's kind of funny. We sit here and talk for an hour, and like you said, he hit on everything we talked about in a matter of minutes. And some of the points that Jeff brought up with, the door opening, the window opening, and what they used to do at Cottage Grove. And I think that is something that every racetrack, whether you're at a sanctioning body or not, should mandate that it has to be a certain dimension to get a driver out.
The crazy part about it is that, we're just Northwesterners. We don't travel. We don't do all that type of stuff. And we literally just talked about what, NASCAR legend Kenny Wallace just hit on every single point that a chassis builder, safety crew, and 2 race announcers just talked about for the last hour.
Well, and there's a guy that's got a lot of experience. He is a fabricator, and if you've ever seen a car that Kenny's put together, I mean, you can't really say it gets any better. He's right there with some of the top, chassis manufacturers himself, and those guys know what they're doing. That's a heck of a race shop they have there in Missouri. But pretty cool to have Kenny call in, and Kenny, if you're listening, still thanks, appreciate it, buddy. But,
absolutely.
The only thing that really kind of disturbed me as a safety crew member is he said you can't count on him on the safety crew to be there, and for me, that's always been my goal as a track worker, is to be the best that I could be.
Sure, I think
what he was saying is that you may not go to a track that has that. We're extremely spoiled by having you guys available.
We really are, and I think he goes back to talking about, putting your life in your own hands before you even get to the track, as far as, make sure you take care of I don't take that personal. I don't think Kenny meant it, towards every safety crew. I think he meant it more towards a racetrack.
For for all the track owners and stuff out there, I mean, the Shrams have been really good to me, and take care of me, and they're doing the same thing at Sunset.
Absolutely.
There's some other tracks that they don't put one thought into safety.
You're right. And see, there's other tracks where you don't race if there's not an ambulance present. So, I think as a track owner,
even as an ambulance, for one, they're not used to racing injuries.
Right.
So they have a learning curve to do. And that doesn't do anything for fire or extrication. Or
we race a lot of Cottage Grove, and Ernie and that group down there do a pretty good job. And I think it's South Lane County, they have the ambulance come and sit there, and they're there. And sometimes we've had to stop when they've had to go on an actual call and wait for an ambulance to come back. But again, we're pretty fortunate with the group down there as well. Just like
and
you
I
guys.
know a lot of track owners don't like that ambulance rule. With insurance saying, well, you can't race when you have an ambulance. I mean, I get it; it's expensive, but how much is safety worth? I mean, how do you put a price tag on that? I guess that's kind of the whole thing about the show really today is what's safety worth.
Part of that is the insurance too. They a lot of the places they say you can't race without an ambulance. We're lucky enough that we don't have an ambulance at our track, but we usually have a very minimum of 2 EMTs on site, and ambulance that's usually only 2 minutes away.
And see, that's the same thing up there at Sunset. Is the quick response if you do need AMR or medical technicians and stuff. You guys are close enough into town that it is within a couple minutes that you guys do have fire rescue. Ambulance on scene.
Right. And most of the stuff you initially do isn't something in the ambulance, it's not going to matter whether you have an EMT there or a paramedic. They're going to do the same things for that first five minutes.
It's that basic first responder.
It does. It goes right back to the first responder deal because once medics and stuff get there, it's usually package and go.
Right.
And you guys are, you guys will assess the scene. You'll let paramedics or EMTs and stuff know, say, okay, this is what we have. We have a broken collarbone or whatever the case, may be. They package, and they're realistically just to transport and to assess and go.
Right. I really put a challenge out there to all the safety crews that are listening to this is always strive to be better than what you are right now.
Right.
There's always room for improvement. I've been doing this for 20-some years, and I'm always looking for more that I can do.
Well, and that's something I can say with Extreme and watching you guys when you first got to Willamette to where you are now, where it was just one truck or 2 trucks, and then it was 4 trucks, and now you're seeing all the chemicals and the tanks, and you guys have stepped your program up every year, and I think you've set a standard that everybody other in the Northwest is kind of looking at going, hey, and that's not a knock on any of these other crews at Cottage Grove or Sunset or Skagit, anywhere else. But you guys have kind of set a standard that's got everybody looking at themselves going, we've got to take care of our people.
I've been to almost every track in the Northwest and even into California, exception of Skagit and Elm. Those are the only 2 tracks I haven't been to. And what I've seen is a lot of the fire and rescue crew get complacent. They think, that's never going to happen here. I've heard that a few times.
That's when it happens.
Or, it'll be fine. And it startles me that they would have that attitude because I've been to, the most remote tracks, out Susanville and stuff like that.
Right. Cedarville.
Yeah.
Cedarville.
Yeah.
Where I've had horrendous wrecks, and stuff happens all the time. And, for people not to always strive to be better than what they are right now,
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No,
a little note and stuff. When we're talking to Kenny, we're talking about manufacturers like GRT, TRE, Shaw. Shaw and GRT, do mass because a lot of drivers and stuff do get these cars and they're mass produced and stuff. But Drager Performance here in Oregon, they make sure that every single one of their cars that come out of their shop has a raised halo. So don't get me wrong as a sense, and if I missaid something, Drager Performance, Matthew Drager, all those guys over there, make sure, their cars are definitely top notch. The reason why they went to GRT is because they believe in them. They, have an outstanding track record, just like Victory Circle, just like Shaw's.
And the same thing about Shaw. The last Shaw car we had.
I was going to say.
Kevin told me they had raised the cage to the maximum legal limit of IMCA, and then they offer an extra door bar, a bigger left side door bar, a big boy car they call it. On the last car we built or had them build, we had them raise the dash bar for the same reason.
And
there's
that's
more room.
And that's one thing about Shaw. Those guys are, Kevin and Larry and those guys, they really pay attention to race car construction. And I can say that when, back in the 90s when I was with Hawks and we were running the Shaw cars, and you guys were in Shaws back then.
We had the Shaw late model.
Looking at those cars, they ran a little thicker wall tubing. Yep. They were a little heavier, but the construction of those cars.
Those cars are DOM as well.
And they were like a piece of art. The welds on those cars. And those guys, I
Farrell
think,
does
really,
an awesome job.
Yeah, they took late models, and when they got into the modifieds as well, I think they kind of took the construction to the next level. As far as quality construction, making sure everything is done right and just perfect. And now you're starting to see Victory Circle following suit with that. You look at a Victory Circle car in the construction; those are nice race cars.
Chris and his crew down there do a phenomenal job of fabrication.
They really do. If you just look at those cars as a bare chassis, I mean, you can compare those with the Shaw and say, that's a nice race car. They're put together right. That they're going to keep the driver safe.
Yep.
And that's not a knock on GRT or any other manufacturer. But
no.
I mean, those two companies kind of put it first and foremost, and it's kind of raised the standard, which is a good thing for the industry. It's raised it for everybody.
I'm gonna throw one way back. Remember John Engelgau, Carl Engelgau, Rose City Racing Chassis out of Portland, Oregon. Carl was your size, big boy, and John was, of course, he was a son. He was big guy. They got away from. I believe it was Rayburn or Left-Hander. I think we came in and decided, he's like, you know what, we're going to build our own cars. So Carl went and did a ton of research and said, you know what, I'm going to build this car. And my very first Sportsman and stuff was an RCR chassis, the 50S car when we still ran out there at Willamette, the late model in the 6 and stuff. But that was another deal, is that when he built his cars, he built it for driver safety, extrication, because he was a big boy. He sat there and he says, if I can't get out of this car in 15 seconds, I don't want to be in it.
Well, and that's one thing working on those cars with John. As you look, like I said, John was a big guy. You look at the cockpits. That was a good size. I mean, he had room to move.
Yeah, he
did.
Now
you look at the way those cars were built. I mean, that was almost a mid-engine car.
It really was.
They had
with
a
the big
14-inch driveline. The driveline was 14
everything was between the tires.
Yeah,
the
it was
tires.
so stupid. Right. And then when he built the late model and stuff, and he sunk in the middle and had the big hoops for over the front tires, where I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He goes, downforce. It's cool. I'm like, really?
But, going back
air
to
is free.
Air is free.
That was a good built race car. I remember we were actually, when I was working on those cars in a 100-lapper, we were running well. In fact, we were running in the top 2 or 3. I got a flat tire, pulled in, got sent out of the pit area by a track official, and don't know if they didn't see what was going on, but the leader, who was a very well-known recently retired driver here on the West Coast, a legend, was leading the race, and they sent our driver out in front of the leader and was T-boned big time, and that race car held up.
Yeah.
That race car held up, but that's paying attention to what you're doing as a builder, and you guys building your own modified chassis. You guys took some pretty good hits in those cars you guys were building, and Craig walked away. It's that's first and foremost. I don't care what level of racing you're at, from cage karts all the way up to the 410 sprint cars and everything in between. Safety is something you cannot compromise, you guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. And I want to thank you guys so much for coming in. This whole show and stuff. I mean, usually we do the recap and stuff of Willamette and Sunset, and we had a great turnout at Sunset. I mean, it was awesome. We had close to 70 some odd cars. I believe it's 73 cars that showed up. And we'll get into, right before the end of the show, a small little recap and stuff on that. But tonight, we definitely just wanted to talk just safety. We got a lot of text messages. We had a great person call in. Jeff, as a car builder, as a crew chief, as a friend to a racer, all that stuff, it's awesome to hear your side fire safety for Doug. It's awesome to hear your side.
Really, before we start shutting this whole thing down, we got about
I'm not shutting it down. I'm just getting prepared,
minutes,
son.
But, I want to talk with Jeff on. We've talked about the big things. We've talked about personal safety gear. We've talked about the fuel cells and the containment seats and window dimensions and all that stuff. But let's talk about as a car builder. Kenny Wallace, his big wreck just recently was due to studs, broken studs.
Yeah.
Jeff, on your car that your brother is in. I mean, you're working on a car where kind of his life is in your hands. What are the little things that you look at that you make sure